Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Speak Now. As always, I'm your host, Jay Wolf, joined as always by Eli Malone and Steve Malone. We got a full cast here today. I got the Blue Jays jersey on, man. They are making this a series. Did not see this coming. I saw the Dodgers in five. I thought Blue Jays would take game one. Did not see them winning at all in LA, but kudos to them. We'll get into that after we start as always, with Eli Rants. Eli, what do you have for us this week?
It's a pretty small one this week. I didn't get upset about too many things watching sports this week, which is a good thing. But I think my one specific thing pertained in the Eagles-Giants game this past Sunday, and it upset me. Of course, the tush push is a very controversial play in the NFL, very combative on if it should be legal or not. Me personally, I do think it is exploiting. Like the Eagles run it fantastic. No other team can run it how they do. But that's up for another debate. My issue is I don't think NFL refs know how to ref the play yet. And I think it's completely ruining because the refs they have a hard time sometimes blowing the whistle on forward progress and such. And in the Eagles case with the tush push, it feels like sometimes they let it go a little longer, and they get an extra half yard to a yard on this tush push where you're not sure if there's forward progress. And then the one time where there's pretty obvious forward progress, and Jalen Hurts fumbles the ball, and one of the few times he ever does on the tush push, the refs have their whistle all the way down their esophagus and blow the play dead and they take the ball away from the Giants, and the Giants are never going to win that game. Like they were pretty far out of it, so I'm not going to say like, oh, it was closer at that point. Who knows if it could have flipped? But the Eagles deserve to win that game. I won't say, oh, it was because of this play. But I don't think we should have a play where I don't think the refs can consistently call it the right way because I don't know if you guys saw the specific play, but it's about as obvious as day that's forward progress out of any tush push because he wasn't even in the pile. He was to the left of the pile around where like in between the B gap, I think it was around where the guard was. And it was clear as day that the Giants should have had the ball. So I don't at this point, I'm not sure if the refs know what forward progress is. So that kind of annoyed me just because I don't know. I don't think there should be a play in any league if a ref doesn't know how to consistently ref it. And I think that's where my gripe is with the tush push. I don't think they know how to ref it. That annoyed me, and I would have been hit if I was a Giants fan. It's small, I think, but it did annoy me.
Yeah, that's fair. I've been against that play pretty much ever since it started, to be honest. Yeah, it's just gotten worse with the refs. There's guys moving on both sides of the ball. There's guys laying on the ground. There's guys getting their legs twisted. There's motion behind the quarterback. There's tight ends running it. There's running backs running it. There's everybody trying to get every little advantage, which getting an advantage in a play call or trickery or strategy to me is all great, but you're just kind of, just, playing, get that half yard, just push the guy over the line, and the refs have no idea what to do and no idea when to blow the whistle and all those sorts of things. So I agree. They have to get rid of that. I can't believe that didn't not pass this past off season, and our Lions were actually one of the teams that voted to keep that in play. So yeah, I'm all for getting rid of that play. But
I was just gonna, yeah.
there has to be some rules behind it. As far as how far people are from the quarterback, pushing is allowed once you're past the line of scrimmage, things like that, because you're never going to be able to completely get rid of that. Or if you start pushing someone from behind, the play's dead. You can look at that a few different ways. So but yeah, it's just gotten out of control, to be honest. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
my biggest issue has been with the tush push is, if I'm not mistaken, defensive players can't do the same thing back. Like that's like leverage or whatever, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like that's always been my thing is I'd rather if you want to keep the tush push, okay, but defensive players now get to push into the pile too. Like that's never made sense to me why that isn't equal both ways. But I think, yeah, this is kind of like the nail in the coffin for the tush push. That was a fumble. There's no reason why it's so arbitrary, like when forward progress is called, when it's stopped, like it is like heavily like in the Eagles' favor because like they're not going to stop it if he's short. They're going to once he passes the line to gain, converts for the first down, like then it's like okay, forward progress. But he's still moving. So it's super like huge disadvantage to the defending team, in this case the Giants. For me, it's like I don't care that the Eagles are like run it so well. We need some kind of balance from an officiating standpoint of how this is refed, and from like the defensive side that they can also use leverage and push. But yeah, when you have guys lining off sides all the time, when you just have weird like arbitrary calls like this play needs to die. And I would imagine that we do not see it in the league next year, but who knows? I think, yeah, to Steve's point, I think we kind of thought that it would get voted out this past year and it didn't. So yeah, I think that this is a reasonable rant. That's ridiculous, and it's like it's really enough in the game when that happened that could have changed the entire course of the game. I'm with you, Eli. Like, I don't think that the Giants do end up winning that game, even though I did pick them. But T's and P's to Cam Scatterbo, man, that's awful what happened to him in that game. But yeah, you just can't have that stuff happening.
Yeah, and I mean I don't want to make this sound like oh NFL refs suck type thing because I think that in their defense, I think this play is incredibly hard to officiate. And I've obviously had my fair share like all of the refs, and there are instances where they've screwed teams, but I that should definitely like I don't want this to sound like oh NFL officiating is disgusting. I it for the most part like when I watch games it hasn't been the worst. Like obviously, they're going to make mistakes just as any player does. I haven't been like appalled by a ton of stuff this year, but I just think that if you look at that in the NFL, I don't think it makes a clean product. Like we've mentioned, I mean, you don't see a clean play. Whenever they show a replay, you'll have Chris Collinsworth mentioning three different people moving. Like yeah, it's just something it has to get looked over, but obviously something in the way is the Lions voting to keep it in. So the one gripe I have about Dan Campbell is him keeping the play in.
Yeah, I mean there is the tush push, and another gripe I have is it's getting a little bit weird when a guy catches the ball and the ball hits the ground sometimes. And I've noticed they've given a lot more leeway to allow completions in certain cases. It used to be pretty much if you caught the ball and you didn't have possession before you hit the ground, it's pretty much incomplete. And now there seems to be a little bit of gray area there. So to me, that's a little bit concerning. I've noticed that a couple times in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So that is a little bit of a disturbing trend.
And I do think if there's any like two fan bases and two like this select three people that can say something about that, the Lions and the Steelers do happen to be two people that have gotten knocked for it. So I think it's fair for us to mention, hey guys, that you weren't too lenient with Jesse James and Kelvin Johnson, and here we are.
Well, yeah, even going into recent history, talking about what Steve was talking about with the catch, like the interception against the Bengals, where the player basically rips it out of DK Metcalf's hands. Like, there's a fair argument there that he did not complete that process. Like, that ball was still moving around. That was to me that was a real iffy call, but like also like you can't like blame that as like why you lost. Still should have beat the Bengals. However, the call that really pisses me off is the no call offsides on the defense against the Packers, where Aaron Rodgers gets Micah Parsons and I think Rashawn Gary to both jump off sides. They're like literally in Zach Frazier's lap when he hikes the ball, and Rodgers thinks he's got a free play on third down, throws it like just deep to Roman Wilson, just chucks it up there, and it's a no call. And we had a punt. That was garbage. Like, granted, again, cannot be giving up. What was it? 28 points in the second half, 21, I think, in the fourth quarter alone to the Green Bay Packers. Like, that's unacceptable. The defense played unacceptably poor, unacceptable. Still, when stuff like that happens, It's even more infuriating, man. Yeah, that oof. NFL refs. Oof. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you guys have anything more to say, or should we transition to a sport that might be doing away with their refs? Like they're gradually becoming more and more robots, automated stuff. We're talking baseball. We're talking World Series baseball. I switched up. I was in the Shohei jersey last week. I'm in our Stroman jersey this week. The Blue Jays, again, we talked about this earlier, making this a series. Man, rebounding after the 18 innings to lose that game to another clutch Freddie Freeman home run. And this thing is doing what I thought if it does, I think Blue Jays have a really strong chance to win. I actually think the Blue Jays will win the World Series now because it's going back to Toronto. And the Blue Jays have been so good at home. You're not I'm sorry, I have a hard time believing that the Dodgers are going to win two games on the road. I think they'll win the next game with Yamamoto pitching, but I don't think they win a game seven there in the Rogers Center. What has been your guys' reaction to this World Series so far?
Um, sorry. I'm sorry. I was looking at Stevie's lighting there first.
I don't know
He's
what's
like
going on here.
he's like a shadow. I'm so sorry. I looked down and it took me off. Oh, yeah, I think I'm getting a little concerned about even calling the Dodgers a dynasty at this point, watching this series, because I do think there's serious concern looking at their roster on the long-term capabilities of some of their players. Obviously, they had a pretty solid regular season, not like dominant, but pretty solid. They made the playoffs convincingly, obviously. But I mean, there's players like Freddie Freeman's getting up there in age, and he's a core part of he's still a middle bat order. But like guys like Mookie Betts, it's kind of concerning to see where he was at this year, and he's continued in the playoffs. I mean, I don't want to say he's such a historically great player. He's stunk. He had arguably one of his worst seasons. It might have been his worst season statistically. I'd have to look further into it. Obviously, he had the illness at the start of the year, so it's hard to fully account for that. But I mean, you have Blake Snell, he's older. They're going to probably have to ride Yamamoto and Roki Sasaki pretty hard to continue their stretch. I'm pretty concerned long term for the Dodgers. Obviously, they have the money. Uh, but I don't know. Their bats. I mean, I think they're batting like 220 in the World Series. Um, and you got to tip the cap to been the postseason of rookies. I mean, Troy Savage, man, that was one of the better rookie performances I've seen, and it was arguably the best rookie performance in the World Series for a pitcher. It's up there. Once again, long history of baseball, but I don't know. I agree, Jonathan. I don't think they lose the series now.
We'll let Steve adjust there for a second. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Trey Savage, did he set the rookie record for strikeouts in a World Series game?
He
If I'm not
definitely
mistaken.
set the rookie. I thought I would have to look again. I know I saw something about rookie, but I think he also put up close. He had the most swing and misses in World Series history. I'm not sure on the strikeouts. It's close, but I forget who else he was close with. But I do know he induced 23, which was the most in the World Series since they've tracked it.
Yeah, I mean this series has been kind of insane. Obviously, we had the 18 inning game. I think it was it was Will Klein that finished the last four innings for the Dodgers, and he was basically like a cast off. Obviously, that's what you're going to get when you're in the 15th to 18th inning, but I think everybody wrote off the Blue Jays after that. Pretty much Dodgers in five, right? So um, and myself included in that sentiment. But I do think it's going to go seven. Um, I think you go to that next game and somehow the Dodgers pull it out, but it does have the feel that the Blue Jays are going to take the series. So um, is it? I think is it Scherzer pitching the next game? Is that right?
Gosman's
Osman.
game six, I believe. I mean, if you get to game seven, you have Max Scherzer. I don't know if the Dodgers do it. It'd be pretty cool if they threw out Kershaw in that game. I know they won't, but that would be something. Like Game 7, Kershaw and Scherzer. Like, are we in 2012 again? Unreal.
Yeah, would it be Glass now for the Dodgers in Game 7? And then is it
Yeah.
Yamamoto this game? Yeah, so I would think Yamamoto takes the next game, and then Scherzer, like Eli just alluded to. It's just a storybook Game 7. The Blue Jays take it. I mean, it's kind of where it seems like it's heading. So, the Blue Jays are just getting more guys on base, having those clutch hits, and we had the all-time, another all-time game from Shohei. But, really besides that, the Dodgers bats, besides a few key hits have been a little bit quiet, a lot of strikeouts, pretty very uncharacteristic. And the Blue Jays just kind of up and down the order. There's guys just coming through clutch and getting hits. So that definitely plays in their favor. And I mean, we all know how baseball goes. You get in that funk, and it's just hard to get out sometimes. So there has to be something that happens that just kind of snaps the Dodgers out of that to be able to take these last two games. And you know, nothing might be better than Yoshi taking that next game, and they get a clutch hit from somebody that's not Freeman or Shohei, right? So, but yeah, it just seems like it's going to go ahead towards Game 7, and in Toronto, and the Blue Jays take it. That's seems to be where it's heading.
Yeah, and I think too, looking back at previous episodes that we had when we were talking about the ALCS and whether the Mariners or Blue Jays would be a better matchup for the Dodgers, I think we all talked about how Toronto's bats would give them the best chance against this Dodgers pitching, and that's proven true. Toronto's shown that they can definitely put up runs even against the best of pitching staffs. I know the Dodgers don't have the greatest bullpen, but they do have a very good starting rotation, which is why I think we think this will go 7 games. I think maybe we're arguing that Yamamoto goes a full 9 again here. Who knows? He's really having a Madison Bumgarner-esque postseason so far. But for me, like being in Southern California, rooting for the Dodgers. Not a big fan of them, but like just a local team, it's fun to root for. Don't really care who wins. For me, as a baseball fan, and if I'm rooting for the Dodgers, my biggest thing and my biggest question mark is why do you still have Shohei pitching the day after the 18 inning game? Why is Shohei not resting more? And like you pitch him like later in the series. Like that to me just was so baffling. Like why have this guy who's out been out there for so long coming in, and he looked sluggish. Like he didn't have his best. He gave up 4 runs in that game to the Dodgers or to the Blue Jays, and obviously that's why they lost, and then put them in this predicament where they really needed to win the last game. They didn't really want to go into Toronto with down 3-2, but here we are, and that I feel like that decision in of itself might have cost the Dodgers the series.
Well, yeah, I think there's two things that have really hurt the Dodgers this series. One is I think Dave Roberts has continually shown he's not able to consistently manage a championship winning team. He had it last year, but it's like, I mean, sometimes when you have a roster like the Dodgers, you just fall into a World Series because you have so much star power. But like he twinkled with a roster that got to the World Series, and they had performed well before this series. And then you put in a guy like Alex Call yesterday, and like no disrespect, but Andy Pages has had a pretty good season. He obviously is one of their lower hitters. You bring in a guy, Alex Call, who you just trade as a depth platoon piece from Washington. I don't know. I don't know if that's the solution to like induce something out of like. And then he brings Mookie down in the lineup, and then the Shohei. I completely agree with that. I don't see why Shohei. I mean, 18 innings for that guy, and it's got to be super strenuous on the body. But I think number two is the Dodgers not having Alex Vesia right now. I think that's hurt them a lot because he had, I don't believe he's coming back at all for this series. I'd have to look. But they lost him for a bit because of a personal issue. So obviously nothing the Dodgers could do about that. But I mean, he was their high leverage reliever all season. So I think that plays in the fact that they got to keep their start. I mean, Blake Snell pitched 116 pitches yesterday. He's only gotten over that twice with the Padres. I mean, I don't know. I think losing Alex Vesey is a bit not talked about enough for the Dodgers because he's their top dog. Like they have to throw in Blake Trinan more than they probably want to, which has hurt them. But their starters also haven't helped them in the games that they've lost.
Yeah, I completely agree. Roberts didn't really show the ability to pivot in that situation. So I guess, when you don't leave yourself that flexibility in that late 18 inning game, you kind of left yourself no other choice but to bring Shohei back out there. So he can't be pulled to pitch in that game because of being a DH. So you don't have that possibility. So you're using up bullpen and other guys that would potentially be able to start that next game, and your hands are kind of tied at that point. So um, yeah, sometimes it's really better. And the AJ Hinch and some other guys are really good at that versatility, but like you said, you just have this great roster, and you kind of can almost fall into a World Series, similar to like a Philadelphia Eagles roster or something like that in the NFL, where the coach, there's some question marks, but the roster is so good that you overcome that. If as long as you have enough scheme or enough playmakers on your team to kind of get you over the top. But when you hit adversity and you have that big decision to make, you have to be able to pivot and show that leadership. And I totally agree with both of you guys that that was a huge tipping point in this series to get the Blue Jays ahead 3-2.
Well, next time that we meet for an episode, we will know who wins this World Series. I'm just hoping we get some November baseball. I think that's always fun whenever the World Series goes into November. It's kind of crazy how long the baseball season is that it can stretch like 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. It's a good time. Speaking of Shohei, at least for me, he was the inspiration for our next segment, where we're going to be talking about our personal Mount Rushmore of athletes. Um, don't really have any parameters around this. This doesn't necessarily have to be like just pure athletic ability. It can be accomplishments across all these different sports that we have. Really, no limit on this. How do you guys want to do this? Do we want to each reveal our list one at a time, or do we want to each reveal one player from our list or person from our list?
I think one at a time is great.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll start with you, Eli.
I mean, I'll start nice and easy. My personal goat of basketball, out in the Mount Rushmore, I put Michael Jordan as my first one. I don't think he's necessarily top. He's just the first name I put. For me, I think just in terms of, I obviously never got to watch him, but in terms of playoff dominance, the entire time he played dominance, especially his 6 championships, to me, I think he's just the epitome of a basketball player. He's the perfect mold. Um, and I think I think for me, it helped watching The Last Dance to kind of take in kind of what characterized Michael Jordan of the competitor he was. And is he a complete D-bag? Probably, but he won. And to me, I think he's perfect to have on the Mount Rushmore. He's my first one. I had him on there pretty easily.
Yeah, so I guess when you think about Mount Rushmore, I'll just start off with that is you just think historic, you think of brand, you think of something that you're going to talk about 20 years, 40 years, 80 years, 100 plus years from now. My first was also Michael Jordan, just the 6 titles, 5 MVPs, 6 final series MVPs. So every single title they won, he was the MVP, 10 scoring titles. The Nike brand is synonymous with Michael Jordan. The swoosh, just all down the line, you think Michael Jordan when you think basketball, and you're like Eli said, The Last Dance. I mean, that just came out at a perfect timing, just to bring that back to everybody from my generation to the current generation to previous generations. So yeah, I think there's no one else, at least from the NBA, that I would put up there other than Michael Jordan.
Yeah, so spoiler, did not have Michael Jordan on my Mount Rushmore, but I will, since I kind of alluded to this, I will give away my easy one. Shohei Ohtani is on my Mount Rushmore. Um, I think with what he's already accomplished, both in the MLB, but also I got to take into account what he accomplished in Japan as well. Just the being able to be such an elite hitter and pitcher. Like we're going to be like 40 years from now, we're going to be the old fart sitting around telling the youngsters about the time that Shohei hit 3 home runs and struck out like 10 guys in a playoff game. Like that's going to be the stuff that we talk about to do both at such an elite level. Um, like to me, once I believe this is year 8, so he needs year 8 or year 9, so he needs either 2 or 1 more year to be actually eligible for the Hall of Fame because there's a 10-year minimum actually. He would make that regardless. Like counting stats out the window, and I think that for someone to have that type of reputation in a sport as old as baseball that also values counting stats, values things like milestone stats, and for us just to sit back and be like, yeah, that doesn't matter for this guy. Like he's just head and shoulders above anything we've ever seen. I think he's in the conversation not only for greatest baseball player of all time, but definitely greatest athlete of all time. So for me, Shohei Ohtani is on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with Shohei. He is my honorable mention. I'll spoil. I don't have him on mine. It was close, but I got to give a shout out to a sport that we don't talk about him much, and I think that he fully deserves it because I think in this sport, I think we live in the greatest generation for it, especially mine with the 2010s. I put Lionel Messi on mine on my Mount Rushmore. I not a big fan of him, but I it's hard to dispute how unbelievably dominant he is. And I think what kind of made me put him on the Mount Rushmore is thinking he got the last trophy he needed in getting the World Cup. And for me, that kind of solidified it. The rivalry between him and Ronaldo is a historic rivalry. In the 2010s, it's like if you love soccer, you were born in the best generation for it. You had the best rivalries regardless of when you're playing in the Champions League, then Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, all of those teams that were dominant in those 2010s. But Lionel Messi rose above, and I think what really stands out is when he has the record for most goals in a calendar year. He had 91 goals in a calendar year, which is unheard of. The next closest is 6 goals behind him in like the 70s by a German, I believe. And so having 91 goals in a calendar year, nobody's even touched that. Like when people get the Ballon d'Or, which is like the MVP of the soccer year, I mean, these guys are only scoring like 50 goals a year. And granted, soccer has changed where it's less one player centric with the striker, the wingers. But I don't know. For me, it's when I've watched Lionel Messi, I'm just in awe. He has the most unbelievable plays where he can outrun 5 guys and score a goal.
My second one is going to come from the NHL. It'd be Brantford, Ontario's Wayne Gretzky. I just think, 4 Stanley Cups, 10 scoring titles. He still holds 55 NHL records, not being around for 30 some years, well, around 30 years now. So um, I believe he scored around 210 points in a single season. He had 50 hat tricks. I mean, this guy was just unbelievable. So no one's going to touch his points records, things like that. He's hundreds of points ahead of where anyone would be. I mean, Connor McDavid would have to be doing what he's done for I don't know how many more years. So it's just insane how great Wayne Gretzky was, especially during my time. I think he was kind of the Michael, kind of around the same era as Michael Jordan. So there was a lot of greatness in that time period, and to still have all those records standing today, I think is unbelievable. So Wayne Gretzky is definitely on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, Wayne Gretzky was definitely in my honorable mentions. Both him and Michael Jordan, as you guys said, like those guys were kind of hard to leave off this, but when it's only four, it's only four. We've been talking about a lot about championships, people that win, and sometimes winning surpasses athletic ability. And for me, my next guy on my Mount Rushmore is the greatest football player of all time, Tom Brady. Tom Brady, not the most athletic guy, but man, his work ethic, what he was able to do, just continue to believe in himself and commit himself, and just the knowledge he had for the game of football. Uh, to win 7 championships, more than any single franchise in the history of the NFL. Man, that's just something special. He's a Michigan man, so uh, that adds a little something for me, you know. I think that that's something that just is awesome. So yeah, Tom Brady. I'm not gonna lie, Eli, forgot about Messi. Probably would have put Messi on my list if I had remembered. So I will. He's an honorable mention. I'll tell you who I would take off my list once I get to that guy for Messi. But yeah, Tom Brady definitely solidified in my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I'll keep this short and sweet. I also have Tom Brady. For me, he's up there with Michael Jordan on. It's hard for me, in my opinion, to have anybody pass those two guys just because of the sheer dominance. They would have to show a level above. Like if they're similar, I'm going to be like, yo, I'm taking Tom Brady. Just because he was just a sure bet. You're like, yeah, this guy's going to compete. And you look at his all-time receivers. He didn't always have weapons, but he had just the absolute knack for winning. So I also had Tom Brady. I'll keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, I had Tom Brady as well. He has every passing record. For how long he played, he still had like 120 less interceptions than a guy like Brett Favre, things like that. Still 25,000 yards more than a guy that throws for 4,000 regularly, and like Matt Stafford. So yeah, just yeah, Tom Brady. I agree, 100%.
All right, I'm gonna go old school with my last two. This next guy, probably if I would have thought about Messi, would have replaced him, but I think still is worthy of being talked about here. Often forgot about in our day and age. Jim Thorpe. Jim Thorpe is like the quintessential athlete from the 20th century, man. This guy won an Olympic gold medal. Like he played professional football, basketball, baseball. Just he was a player coach, also a coach for the Canton Bulldogs, one of the older NFL teams, and it's why we have like the Hall of Fame in Canton. It's to me, he's just someone that in to do what he did in his day and age, especially as a Native American, someone that wasn't always like the most that had to deal with a lot of like difficulties and struggles there. Um, and some pushback, man, just what he had to go through and what just his versatility. I don't know how he would stack up with modern athletes, but just to pay homage to him, Jim Thorpe would be on my Mount Rushmore.
I like the Jim Thorpe shout out. I was between two for my last one. I will say the one that was just off. I almost put Michael Phelps, just because I mean, historically in the Olympics, the greatest Olympic performer of all time, dominant swimmer. But I went with the guy who was another dominant era in his sport. I put Tiger Woods. I put Tiger just because that era he had in the late 90s going to the early 2000s, you would be talking that this guy had just as many majors as missed cuts in his time. No, his streak on the number one player has gone untouched. I mean, I feel bad for guys like Phil Mickelson that had to continually go against Tiger Woods. And you don't even think about Phil in this era because Tiger Woods was just winning everything. His wins he stacked up like Scotty Scheffler has like in the past couple of years, he has like 23 tour wins, I think. And then Tiger in like 2 calendar years, he had like 30 something. Like in that era for Tiger, he was nearly unbeatable. And Jack Nicklaus has him in some statistics, but I think watching Tiger, I think arguably one of the greatest sports accomplishments of all time was him winning that 2019 Masters. I don't know what his odds were in that, but I mean, he's coming off of multiple his back's broken and he beat guys in their prime. So I had to give Tiger a shout. It's a tough one because, you know, a lot of people won't think about golf, but he was sheer dominance. And luckily I was able to watch the tail end of his career.
Yeah, my honorable mentions would be for basketball would be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, they had to outlaw the dominance in the college basketball arena as well as in the NBA early in his career. A little bit tarnished by playing a little bit too long. But I mean, he had the scoring record, until LeBron broke it recently. So, but yeah, definitely not in the same, conversation as Jordan for sure. Gordie Howe in the NHL would be honorable mention. And then for football, I mean, definitely Jerry Rice with all the records he had and how long he was able to play. And still at the age of 40, easily just getting open on 20 some year old cornerbacks. But along with Jonathan, I'm going to go kind of old school George Washington-esque. I'm going to go with Babe Ruth for my last one. So just the swagger, the attitude. Also, 714 home runs, 90 some wins as a pitcher. If you look at, he had, I think, an 1100 plus OPS. His numbers, even if you look at Barry Bonds' numbers, all those numbers are better on base percentage, OPS. I know the 4 year stretch of Bonds is unmatched. Obviously there's the tarnishment there. If you take out that tarnishment of Bonds, Bonds is absolutely on this list if you look through the numbers. In a 4 year stretch, Bonds had like 750 walks and I believe a 580 on base average. So just insane with I think like 230 home runs or something like that. So, but yeah, Babe Ruth for all those reasons is definitely on my Mount Rushmore.
That's a good one. Yeah, Babe Ruth is hard to argue against. For me, my last one is um, to me, I just think that the history of sports in general, baseball, it's especially, I'm going with a baseball player here, but sports in general, completely altered by this man and like what he had to go through, what he had to sacrifice, and what he had to endure for the greater good of society and humanity. Is Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson famously broke MLB's color barrier in 1947, and like the racial discrimination that he had to endure during his time, and the way that he was able to break through and open up the door for so many uh, athletes of color, minorities to come and play professional sports. I deeply believe that our professional sports landscape does not look what it looks like now without him. Uh, it. I also just think in terms of society, like I think that Jackie being a trailblazer helps the civil rights movement like 13 years later. Or so I think he plays such a role in that in opening the minds of Americans to seeing like the equality of people of color in this country. And just apart from that, like all that stuff taken into account, still a Hall of Fame baseball player. Like I believe his WAR is like in the 70s, like still an elite baseball player, like elite athlete. And this is a dude that didn't start playing in the major leagues until he was like 27. It's kind of like Ichiro almost. Um, so just super incredible what he was able to do, be such an elite player despite like the challenges and the other hurdles and like the social aspects of things. Also was a multi-sport athlete growing up, played football, ran track and field at UCLA, was like really good at that. I believe played semi-pro football for a time too. Uh, like so Jackie to me is just will always be my favorite baseball player. I think he should definitely be ranked up there when we're talking about the greatest athletes of all time. And telling the story of sports cannot be done, in my opinion, without Jackie Robinson. Fun fact too, his brother also was an Olympic track athlete. He ran with Jesse Owens, I believe, in the Berlin Olympics back in the 30s. So came from a family of athletes. Yeah, to me, it's Jackie. I yeah, got to put him up there.
That's a good one. That's a good one to end it off.
Yeah. Yeah, with that, yeah, we got to take a break. Let us know in the comments who are your Mount Rushmore for athletes. We missed a lot of people that could arguably be put on there, but that's the beauty of sports, man. We can have this conversation all day, a whole episode someday, just going through Mount Rushmores. Let's do it. All right, we'll be back. Welcome back. We are back after our break. We are here with picks. It is Thursday as we're recording this. Honestly, this episode will probably come out around this time of the start of the Ravens Dolphins game, which kicks us off for the week. You got Lamar Jackson back. He is traveling to his hometown. Miami looked a lot better last week. Is this are we buying what the Dolphins were doing last week, or are we thinking that they're back and there's a reason Vegas has them as the odds-on favorite to win the AFC North? Who you like here, Eli? It's minus 7.5 for the Ravens.
Yeah, these bigger spreads have been a little weird on they've been probably 50-50, maybe a little more in favor of the bigger ones and them hitting. I actually like the Dolphins in this one to cover. I don't think they win this, but I think 7.5. I think the fact that you get the touchdown, I like that aspect of it. For the Dolphins' sake, I hope Tua has another eye issue because he played fantastic with that eye issue against the Falcons. I think if they can keep Achan and Waddle going, I think 7.5 is too much. I think their defense isn't good enough to win the game, but I think if they still have those two guys rolling, I like the Dolphins to keep it within seven.
Yeah, last week kind of flipped where a lot of the favorites were winning by a significant margin. So there was a shift in how the spreads were going early on in this season. With a lot of covers, and then as far as the team that was not favored, but last week kind of switched to the teams that were favored. So I kind of see that trend continuing this week. I do like the rate, but razor thin, kind of like Eli mentioned, 7.5 is just right for this spread. Um, there is a stat out there that Tua kind of throws the ball more in danger than any other quarterback in the NFL. I think showed a little more moxie last week on defense with a couple of guys that were a little more healthy. So I think the turnovers are going to catch up to the Dolphins in this game. And I think with Lamar back, even with Tyler Huntley last week, the Ravens were able to beat the Bears in a game that Bears would be able to win. So they did win by 2 touchdowns. I know kind of weird sequence where Caleb didn't know what he was doing at the end of the game. But saying all that, I'll take the Ravens to cover.
Yeah. So actually, we're talking. Sorry, that was a weird pause, but um, yeah. To your point, Steve, talking about the big spreads. So last week in the NFL was the first time since 1970 that we only had one game where it was like under double digit like point totals, like more than two scores. So every other game was a more than two score, or it was a two score up game, which is like crazy to think about. That being said, like the Ravens, I thought looked a lot better last week um, with Huntley. They got Lamar coming back. I think that they're figuring it out. I do like the Ravens to win and cover here. I'm hoping that the Dolphins can sneak out a win. Obviously, as a Steelers fan, I would love for the Ravens to drop down to 2-6. That helps our odds a lot better of winning the AFC North. I don't think that happens, and I could honestly see Baltimore almost running the table here, or at least like going like 11-6. Yeah, they looked a lot better. I believe that they'll keep that rolling here tonight. I would say that this would be a pick I'd go back and forth on in terms of the spread, but I can't because it's literally in like an hour or so. So picking the Ravens. Next, we got the Bears traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Bears minus 2.5 in this one. Zach Taylor recently said that Joe Flacco is 50-50 to be in this game, which I think has huge implications for how this game is picked.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't think you can base on the defenses in this game because both these defenses suck. I do think for the Bears, it plays into the fact that they have had a good amount of secondary injuries. However, their defensive line is atrocious for the amount of money they've spent on it, especially. I mean, they had a free agent signing 3 years, 48 million for Oda Bengo, and he only plays like 30% of the time. But if Flacco plays, I can't believe the Bengals aren't favored just because both defenses are trash. And I think the Bengals are the better offense. I think Caleb Williams, it's a little concerning his development. It's really up and down. Uh, and his weapons, I don't think they're as good as people put him out to be. I think DJ Moore is not great. He's kind of had a little downturn this year in production. And they wasted a first round pick on Colston Loveland when they could have used it on another point of need from what it looks like. But I'm going to go with the Bengals. I think the Bears are similar in like the Panthers. I think their record's a little better than they are.
Yeah, I like that you brought up DJ Moore. I could see him being a surprise move at the trade deadline. just because of what's happened there. I guess Jalen Phillips would have been a guy from the first game we talked about for the Dolphins. So kind of hoping for a Ravens win just for that case because I know the Lions are on that list. But saying all that, as far as this game, I don't like the fact that Trey Hendrickson looks like he's going to be out this week. I do think just how bad the Bengals defense is. I mean, obviously the Jets got their first win, I believe 39 last week. Just them without Hendrickson, I think they're just the Bears are going to be able to do whatever they want in offense despite some of their limitations with Caleb and processing plays and things like that. Swift are probably going to roll up about 250 yards. So unfortunately, I want the Bengals to win this game, but I think the Bears are going to cover.
Yeah, I got the Bears covering and winning them this game. I think that maybe I start to think about it a little bit more if Joe Flacco does play. But the Bengals, to Steve's point, like their defense is just atrocious, especially if Trey Hendrickson's out. If Joe Flacco's out on the offensive side, Jake Browning has not looked good at all. So I think there's concern there if you're a Bears fan for Caleb Williams and his processing and all that stuff. But I think that those concerns can be pushed back for another week, just given how poor the Bengals look on defense for the time being. So I am picking the Bears here. Then we got the Lions taking on the Vikings. Lions -8.5. Is that too big of a spread? I think maybe we're all thinking that they win this game, but is that too big of a spread with a divisional foe, Eli?
No. The Vikings, I think, are not great. Their defense has regressed a bit under Brian Flores. Andrew Van Ginkel could be back. I think that could really help them. But their secondary has been pretty wishy-washy. They got pretty toasted in both facets of the game against the Chargers. And I don't really think J.J. McCarthy is that big of an upgrade at this point. He only has 2 games under his belt. I don't really think he's that big of an upgrade. And I just think the Lions on defense, they've continually progressed over the past couple of weeks. And I think their offense will only get better. And I think the Lions have shown a pretty big consistency of covering those big spreads with the Browns, the Titans, and the Jags as 3 prior examples from the past 2 years.
Yeah, I think the Lions are going to absolutely baffle JJ McCarthy. I think they took a huge step with some of the backup players that played the last game. I think that's going to kind of light a fire under a guy like Brian Branch. I think he had a week to reflect. I believe he's getting baptized today as well. I think he's just going to come out and have a monster game, as well as Terry and Arnold being back. So I do. And obviously, you've got the Aiden Hutchinson contract. I think that defense is just going to show up and show out. You're also going to have some tweaks on the offense from over the bye week. Lions' average margin of victory, even with playing teams like Chicago and Tampa Bay at home, has been over 20 points this week or this season. So I see that continuing, and do see the Lions winning by at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys could be in a scenario here where you're looking at having to replace your defensive coordinator for the second year in a row, just because I think Calvin Shepard's just done such a phenomenal job that he could be a hot name once the coaching carousel starts coming around and people are looking for a head coach. Like, I think his name's definitely going to be out there, man. He's a dog, and he has got those guys playing really, really well. The Lions look really nice. Yeah, I think they cover here and win easily. Um, you got another big spread up next. You got the Carolina Panthers traveling to Green Bay. Green Bay with a really nice win over the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, man. Showed a lot of resiliency coming back from a poor first half to really dominate that second half. Panthers looking rough without Bryce Young. Bryce Young, though, full participant in practice this week so far. The spread there is -12.5 for Green Bay. That seems a little bit much, but is that justified?
I had a hard time with this one because the Packers have shown instances where they can be dominant that second half, for example. The Panthers have shown instances where they stuck last week, for example. But I just don't think the Packers put a full display of a game at this point in their season yet, where I think 12.5 is just a little too much, where I think the Packers will handle this game tempo-wise. Well, as long as the Panthers can establish their run game well enough, I think Rico Dowdle has to get a majority of the carries right now. If they can establish that well enough and get T-Mac involved to a degree, he had a good second half last week against the Bills, even though it was a drubbing. I think if those two position players can participate well in this game, I think 12 and a half is a little too big just because the Packers, their offense can't consistently put up dominance, and then their defense has had a bit of a struggle forcing turnovers this year. So I think 12 and a half is too big. I'll go Panthers.
Yeah, I think we've already seen this play out earlier in the season. The Packers came out and, obviously beat the Lions convincingly, albeit week one. And then they had some games against Arizona, Cleveland, and Dallas, and they were pounding their chest like they weren't going to lose another game the whole season. And, they barely eked out, lost, and tied those particular three games. So, with Bryce Young being back, I think acclimating a little bit to that offense getting back together and, a little more use of Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard getting his legs back under him as well, and kind of a nice 1-2 punch there. I think Carolina will definitely cover the spread. Saying that, I do think the Packers will win, of course.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I like Carolina to cover the spread here. Uh, Maybe even win, but like I just think that their Carolina is like a really sticky team this year where they're I don't think any of us maybe some of us do, but I'm guessing none of us really take them as a serious playoff threat at all, but they're also like not a team that's willing to bottom out that I don't think we thought that they'd be particularly great, but here they are with 4 wins at this point in the season. They're just kind of sticky in there. They're kind of keeping their hat in the ring a little bit. So they're just pretty resilient team. I like them here at the very minimum to cover. I don't necessarily think that they win, especially at Lambeau, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. Uh, then we got another big spread. We got the Chargers taking on the Titans, where the Titans just look dead. This is a -9.5 spread for the Chargers traveling to Tennessee.
Chargers.
Yeah, 9.5's not nearly enough. Chargers.
Yeah, no need to waste oxygen on this one. Chargers, Tennessee might be looking at back-to-back number one overall picks here. Then we got the Falcons traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. The spread is -5.5 for the Patriots. Patriots have been looking really nice in recent weeks. Who do you guys got here?
Until the Patriots give me any reason not to pick them, I'm going to pick the Patriots. The Falcons, I mean, at this rate, the Falcons do tend to go back and forth on having solid showings, and one of the more disgusting showings you can ever see last week was disgusting. Uh, but even the Patriots, they gave up 5 sacks, all to Myles Garrett. They still won that game convincingly. I think the only time all time where the guy had 5 sacks and his team lost. And the Browns were never in that game once the second half came into play. I think Drake May, even though he doesn't have the greatest weapons, I just think he utilizes them so well. And I think Josh McDaniel just bleeds Patriots blood. I think that guy's fantastic. Him and Vrabel being back in New England, I think has just brought the Patriots back. So I'm going to go with the Patriots.
Yeah, look for the Patriots. I see there's an injury with Ramondre Stevenson. Look for them to make a move for someone like Jerome Ford or Tony Pollard at the trade deadline. I could see that happening. They don't seem to trust Travion Henderson to either block or hold on to the ball. I could see someone like Dearness Johnson playing this game and getting like 80 yards and a touchdown, something crazy like that. So I think Atlanta does need to take a page out of the book of the Steelers and also the Browns and create that pressure and turnovers and see what they can get out of it. But yeah, I agree. I think the Patriots will cover. The 5.5 doesn't seem quite rich enough for me to pick the Falcons.
Yeah, I fully agree with you guys here. Uh, New England just looked like one of the top teams in the AFC so far this year, and Atlanta's been really hot and cold, and I don't really expect them to do much in this game. So I like the Patriots here. Then we got the 49ers traveling to MetLife Stadium, take on the Giants. 49ers minus 2.5 here. Who do you guys like in this game?
I think this is a sneaky shootout game, personally, just looking at it. The Niners defense really isn't great right now, just because of all their injuries. So I have a bit of a concern for them long term. Their offense is starting to get healthy, but if Brock Purdy's first game back, if he does play, I don't know. There's times where those quarterbacks will come back after like a foot injury and they'll just be really their footwork, they'll be a little tippy toes in the pocket. So I think this will be a high scoring game because I don't think the Giants defense is great either, even though their defensive line has a lot of big names. So I ended up going with the Giants. I feel like they might have a little fire under their soul with Scatabo getting hurt. And Jackson Dart has looked fantastic. He finished the game strong against the Eagles. I think he'll put together a nice effort to cover against the Niners.
Yeah, I think the other way. I think it's going to be a letdown for the Giants. I think they're losing too many guys. Just keep losing weapons on offense. Robert Saleh is really going to take advantage of that, regardless of losing some weapons. I mean, they've had a couple of inspiring showings, or at least one since losing Fred Warner. Um, so, and yeah, I agree with your point on Purdy. There's a lot of those foot injuries like Kyler, Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels, where the guys just aren't coming back. And I see Mac Jones starting again this week. And he's actually played pretty well. I mean, he's definitely one of the better backups in the NFL. So I'm going to take the 49ers to cover this and, big Christian McCaffrey, comeback game after last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been pretty consistent on the show with being high on the Giants ever since they put in Jackson Dart, with him and Scattaboo, man. Even when Neighbors went down, still thinking that they could win 8 to 9 games. I'm shifting now with the Scattaboo injury. I think that this is kind of the nail in the coffin for their season, unfortunately. I don't see them actually being really relevant in this game at all. I think the 49ers, and with a veteran defensive coordinator like Bob Saleh, can definitely put this game away early. I like them to win and cover here. Then we got the Colts, arguably the best team in the NFL currently, guys, traveling to Acrisure Stadium to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh coming off an embarrassing loss to the Green Bay Packers, whereas the Colts just keep riding with potential MVP Jonathan Taylor. Who do you guys like here? Minus 3.5 for the Colts.
As much as I want to ride with the Steelers, I honestly don't think 3.5 is enough. For a team like the Colts right now, I thought it might be more like just another point and a half. Just because the Colts offense, in my eyes right now, is the best operating offense in the NFL. And if you've watched the Steelers over the past couple weeks, specifically the last two, their defense hasn't looked good, putting it bleak and simple. Their secondary has shown a lot of issues. Darius Slay started to get replaced in that second half by Brandon Eccles a bit, which we could maybe that continues even more. Uh, and I'm just concerned about the Steelers defense. They made a small move for Kyle Duggar. I don't think that's enough to stop the Colts offense. I think Jonathan Taylor could run wild, and Daniel Jones is just making great reads. So I don't think the Steelers have the capability on defense right now to stop this dominant Colts offense. So I'm picking the Colts.
This is a huge game for the Steelers because I believe they have the Chargers after this week. So there's a couple really tough games coming up here. So I think they're going to come out very inspired in this game. I don't know if it'll be enough, but that front seven really needs to come through and help out that secondary. The secondary is definitely struggling and kind of the defense struggling overall to stop tight ends, to stop running backs, things like that. So I think the Steelers, they're going to have to avoid any sort of penalties on offense and really control the ball and, kind of confuse Daniel Jones on the defensive side. So I do, but I think it's going to be very close. And I think you'll get a very inspired effort out of the Steelers after that second half last week.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see this being a game where Pittsburgh shocks everyone and comes out with the win here. It just kind of feels like it could be one of those games where the defense, to Steve's credit, comes out pretty inspired and it's enough to get the job done. Um, that being said, I am kind of in my I don't know what to make of their defense phase. They've at times this season looked really good. At times, especially more recently, it looked really bad. Um, honestly, I think that they need to do a better job in coverage because the front seven is getting close to the quarterback. It's just these guys are getting the ball out with record time. Joe Flacco 2 weeks ago, and then Jordan Love last week, and you're blitzing Jordan Love when Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the NFL against the blitz. It's just a recipe for disaster. I could see them hypothetically taking Jonathan Taylor not completely out of this game, but definitely minimizing him. I think the Steelers have shown a capability of doing that both this season and in the past. Last year, they limited Saquon a lot and made Jalen Hurts have to beat them with his arm, which he did. So I think that this could very much be a Daniel Jones needs to beat them with his arm, which I think he will, unfortunately. But I would not be surprised if Pittsburgh comes out and upsets the Colts here. But yeah, I think the pessimist in me could easily see this being a 6-10 season, and this spread is too small. So I'm picking the Colts here. And when I was picking against the Steelers, they were winning, so I'm gonna keep picking against them. Then we got Denver traveling to Houston, take on the Texans. Denver's looking pretty legit the last couple weeks, not gonna lie, guys. Bo Nix, he's stepping it up, man. He's looking like a lot better of a quarterback. Texans, uh, they're been kind of impressed by some of their younger receivers, man, getting more in the mix and getting in the fold here. It is -1.5 for the Texans.
Yeah, I think the Broncos, I do think can get a little hazy seeing as how they dominated the Cowboys defense, which it feels like everybody has. So I look back at how before that they had 3 quarters of really bad football against the Giants, and they're going against the Texans defense that is a top 5 unit in my opinion. Uh, they really should have more than 3 wins. And this is my upset of the week. I think the Texans will win this. I'm pretty confident in the Texans. I think their offense, CJ Stroud looked the best that he's looked in a minute against that 49ers team. He got Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, Xavier Hutchinson the ball really well. He has Nico Collins coming back most likely. I like the Texans. I think that their defense can hold the Broncos to a low scoring game, and I think the Texans will be able to edge it out.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It does look like Nico's back. You also have Patrick Surtain out for the Broncos. That's a huge loss on their defense. Like Eli mentioned, the Texans shut down Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers offense in the last game. And really, the Seahawks kind of had limited success in that Seattle one. Houston's definitely on the upswing. Some of the young weapons, Noel Higgins, Woody Marks, Will Anderson on defense, and some others on their defense as well. Derek Stingley. They've just been really impressive, and they've kind of turned the corner, and they can definitely make a see. So I'm going to take Houston to cover as well.
I'm gonna go against you guys. I'm gonna pick the Broncos here. I know Sertan being out is gonna hinder what they can do up front, but they're still arguably the best pass rush in the league, and the Texans haven't looked the best on the with their offensive line. I think that they can get to Stroud and really rattle him early. I do think this will be a low scoring game, but I do like the Texans here or not the Texans, the Broncos here to win and cover. Then we got the Jaguars traveling to Vegas to take on the Raiders. It is -3.5 for the Jags. Jags been a little inconsistent this year, but the Raiders have been kind of consistently bad. So does that matter?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think the Raiders will tweak some things out of their bye week. I think Brock Bowers back would really help their offense, but I'd be hard to pick them with just 3.5. I think the Jags have enough on offense. I find it hard to believe that Brian Thomas just won't contribute this entire year. I know he's questionable right now, but Travis Hunter, I think we could see something more out of him this week with them also coming out of their bye. I think the Jaguars' offense is dynamic enough to win this game. And then the Jaguars' defense has enough pieces. They kind of got bullied around their last game against the Rams. But I'm gonna go with the Jags. I just have a hard time picking the Raiders, seeing as how the last little bit we got from the Raiders was them only having 30 plays on offense for an entire game. So I'm going with the Jags just because I can't buy into the Raiders.
Yeah, Jags are another team that doesn't seem to have kind of like the Falcons an identity on offense. They don't want to quite commit to Travis Etienne or anybody in the backfield. Lawrence doesn't have that safety net at tight end like you had previously with Evan Ingram. They don't really know who their number one wide receiver is. You have a new coach kind of running the offense and trying to figure all those things out. So I still think the Jags are kind of in discovery or creation mode on offense. So, and they just seem to be that type of team that you don't know what you're going to get. So I do like the Raiders coming off the bye week to play some inspired football and to cover that spread.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Jags here, but I don't feel great about that. So this could be one that I switch on. But yeah, until well until then I'll go Duval. Then we got a big spread here. We got the Saints taking on the Rams in at SoFi, minus 13 and a half for the Rams. I don't know what Puka's status is. I know that he was expected to practice Wednesday, but I actually, funnily enough, have not kept up with that. Probably should look at that, see if I'm starting him in our leagues.
Um, I don't really care if Puka plays. Give me the Rams. That's the Saints are they were kind of a fun team to root for. They are no longer that. They have fallen apart quick. Their games are getting less and less competitive. The Bucks had 200 yards of offense, and they would have came close to covering the spread last week. Give me the Rams.
Yeah, the Saints are a mess. I'm afraid they're going to have a big fire sale after this game. Probably lose by 3 to 4 scores. You're going to have Rashid Shaheed, Alante Taylor, possibly more players that'll be traded from their team, come before next Tuesday. So give me the Rams as well.
Yeah, this is to me, this is no question to Eli's point whether or not Puka plays, the Rams are still going to dominate. I think that they are up there for the best team in the NFC. You can make that argument for. I really am high on them this year. Give me them. Then we got not technically the game of the week, but game of the week. We got the Chiefs traveling to Orchard Park, take on the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen's been historically good against the Chiefs in the regular season, not so much the postseason. Does he continue that success here against the Chiefs? It is minus 1.5 for Kansas City.
Yeah, it's a toss up. I mean, obviously the spread shows that. Surprised it favored the Chiefs, even though they're away. That was a little surprising to me, but I am going to go with the Chiefs just because I think their offense and defense is clicking on both sides right now. Patrick Mahomes is playing at his old level. Not that he was ever bad, but his old level of dominance. So I like the Chiefs in this one. I think their defense has been really good as well. And I think the Bills have shown a lot of offensive inconsistencies this year, which is a little different than years past.
Yeah, a couple of issues I see in this game is a couple of injuries would be Ed Oliver on the Buffalo Bills side being out, so that's a major problem. And I do think the three-headed monster and the Chiefs backfield is kind of important for that balance. So Isaiah Pacheco being out is also going to wear down Kareem Hunt, and I could see Brashard Smith maybe having a good game, but also making some mistakes during that game. So I see this game going really like that Ravens Bills game early in the season, where the Chiefs get way ahead and then somehow the Bills kind of pull this out, at the end of the game. So I'm actually going to take the Bills to cover this. I feel like the Chiefs are ego, Travis Kelsey, and some of the podcasts and things like that. I think it's a little inflated at this point. So I could see them kind of getting put back down to earth a little bit and the Bills taking this game.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a high scoring game, and it's going to come down to the wire here. I think Josh Allen just plays locked in. Not that the Chiefs don't, but I think that he really puts this team on his back on Sunday, and they come out with a win here. I like Buffalo at home. And then we got Sunday Night Football. We got the Seahawks against the Commanders. It's -3.5 for the Seahawks, who look like one of the best teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean the Commanders right now are kind of a mess on defense. They got battered around that second half against the Chiefs. The Seahawks, to me, Sam Darnold's looked great. He had an off and on game the last time we saw him against the Texans, but for the most part, he still got them that win. So I do like the Seahawks. I think 3.5. Even if Jaden Daniels comes back, that Seahawks defense puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And their secondary has, for the most part, been sturdy. So I like the Seahawks. I think their running backs will be their big focal point in this one.
Yeah, the Commanders just can't seem to put it all together. To get Terry McLaurin back, and then I believe he's out again. Quad injury. It just seems like something that's going to hamper him the whole season. Kind of the age on that roster again, like we've mentioned previously, is not helping some of the results, and you know they're not doing the things they did last year, kind of going on those fourth downs and things like that. It's just not panning out for Dan like it did last year. He kind of needs to recalibrate his approach a little bit, kind of like we've talked about coaches and managers earlier on in this episode. But so, yeah, I see Seattle covering. I don't feel great about it because I believe they're a little bit uninspiring as well. I think they are kind of like we've mentioned, a little bit of a fraud. I think the Rams are definitely the class of that division. But Seattle's definitely a big wild card contender, and I do see them covering.
Yeah, I like the Seahawks here. I actually disagree with you, Steve. I think that they're pretty legit. I don't think that they're better than the Rams, but I do think that they are going to be a legit postseason contender just with how their defense looks, and the Darnold to JSN connection just looks really legit so far. But I mean, we'll see. They're just kind of like one of those teams where they don't feel like they should be that good, but they just kind of are. Yeah, I like them to cover and win here easily. Then our last matchup, Monday Night Football, got the Cardinals traveling to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys, -2.5 for Dallas.
Yeah, this game kind of sucks, to be perfectly honest. I might be doing homework during this game, to be honest. I can't say I'm super invested in this game. I mean, Kyler might come back, so it might make it somewhat interesting. I just don't think there's going to be that much pure football in this, other than maybe Dak having a nice game. The Cardinals are I've never been sold on them, and they continue to show everybody why. Then the Cowboys defense. I think the Cowboys are a year away from having a decent team. I just think they need to stack up their defense a little bit, get healthy, and use those extra draft picks just to kind of solidify that defense because their offense is great. So I am going to take the Cowboys just because their offense is really fun to watch. And I think they'll continue that this year. Um, but this game, it could go either way because I think both of them kind of suck.
Yeah, I see this Cardinals roster similar to the Bears. There's like a lot of good pieces, but they just don't all seem to kind of fit together. So um, it does look like Kyler Murray. There's talk of him having a possible Liz Frank injury. So until he's really healthy, I don't think you're going to see him out there. I guess he was thrown at the backups today. And I'm in a league where I've got Kyler and Tua, and I got to throw Tua in tonight. So I don't trust that. Saying that, I know Jacoby Brissett's been actually fairly decent. He is also one of the better backups in the league. But I believe that the Cowboys are going to take this game and cover that spread. They've got too many weapons on their offense. Arizona's not going to be able to stop them, and they'll do just enough to win this game.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially being at home. To Eli's point, the Cowboys, with their coming picks to hopefully build on defense, like as Jerry was saying, Green Bay Packers might have Micah, but we have these picks who could be multiple good players. So I think Cowboys are trending upwards for the coming years, but yeah, they're not much of a contender this year, but the Cardinals definitely are not. So I think yeah, I like Cowboys to win and cover here. But yeah, that's us. Do you guys have anything else before we sign off?
Yeah, obviously enjoy these end of the World Series here, and then also obviously before next week we've got NFL trade deadline. So definitely an exciting weekend of football, baseball, and probably some transactions. I think Detroit and Pittsburgh could definitely be players at the trade deadline. That's not a sure thing, but there are a lot of rumors out there, and I think teams like the Chiefs and Buffalo Bills will also be involved. All those top 6, 8, 10, 12 teams in the league definitely are going to look to make some moves at the trade deadline.
The trade deadline is Tuesday, correct? Like, is
Yep,
it
Tuesday.
is
Yep.
it is it next Tuesday?
Yes, next Tuesday.
It appears we are having a trade deadline special next week, is what I'm hearing in the rumor circle.
Oh, we'll be traveling, Eli, on Tuesday.
Oh yeah, that's right. Never mind. Trade deadline special on Wednesday
Yeah.
or something like
We-
that.
We're actually going to an event next Tuesday.
Right.
My
Well,
bad.
let me look into this camera. Art Rooney, the second or third. Now it's blank. Second? Second. If you're listening to our podcast by chance, I like Calvin Austin. I like Roman Wilson. I like Chris Olave a lot better. I like Jalen Waddle a lot better. I don't know if that defense is getting fixed, but we can win in some shootouts. Please.
It's almost like you had George Pickens.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay that we traded George Pickens, man. George Pickens should have crashed out in this offense, man. He would not have gotten enough targets.
Him and DK would have been kind of weird. I don't disagree.
I won't lie. I miss the fact that because DK obviously big physical guy, but like DK is not like the most like isn't known for his hands as much. Whereas George is just making all these like wild catches where you're like, how the frick
He
did you
doesn't
catch
make
that?
he doesn't make a 50-50 catch.
I know.
DK
Yeah, it's kind of
DK is
frustrating
off.
because I'm
He
so
Yeah,
doesn't
used
make
to
a
George
50-50
just they
catch.
can throw it up there. I'm like, ah, George is coming down with that. But DK, I'm like, ah, shoot, dude. I hope his hands are in the right freaking position for this ball.
man, those safeties for the Steelers, you must have been getting frustrated. It's like couldn't track the ball in that game. I was getting so mad.
So bad.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
Oh, yeah. The safeties were just terrible. I could see why they brought in Peppers and Duggar. Guys are just trying to figure out what to do back there.
Yeah, I mean that's where I still have hope is like I actually think Jalen Ramsey's been pretty good. I think Porter has a chance
I
to
agree.
be good. Queen and Wilson have flashed on the inside, so like they could definitely put it together. Yeah, but yeah, they need the safety helping with Elliott going to IR. That's struggling.
Yeah, it's a problem.
But yeah, let us know your picks. That's it for us. Till next week. Speak now, or forever hold your peace. Peace.
Out the buzzer.
Ew.